I broke up with you. I'm done.
What?
Yes.
Are you serious?
Yes.
No, are you serious?
Yes.
Say it again.
I broke up with you.
Okay.
Guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with the face for radio and a voice for print. Came across an article the other day. It's in Psychology Today. And this is literally from November 2nd, just a couple days ago. And it's the pros and cons of becoming friends with benefits. You know, as I see more and more videos out there and more TikToks and women interviews on the street and articles by, kind of lefty feminist women that are either saying, oh, we're strong and powerful and capable, but also we want traditional men. But in the same time, we're going to have a body count in the hundreds. I think there's a certain point to be said that I think friends with benefits is really where most relationships are starting to boil down to. Now, that's not to say that you can't find somebody special and actually have a connection with them and find love and, maybe have a go of it or a good relationship. But nothing's been changed or even addressed when it comes to divorce laws. We still see guys getting run through the ringer and being hurt. We see women now that are signing up for OnlyFools accounts while they're married or gaining tons of weight or cheating on their men with no remorse and telling their guys, hey, you don't really have a say in this, to their own husband about what the wife is doing. So if a woman at any point in time during the marriage feels, or even the relationship feels like, I'm going to do whatever I want, and you can't control me because you're a man, well, then there's really no point of men getting married and trying to head a household when girl boss feels that she can do whatever she wants, whenever she wants, and then leave with the cash and prizes. So this is actually kind of an interesting take on this. This is from Greg Matos, psychology or psychologist, I guess. And they say the pros and cons of becoming friends with benefits, a form of casual sex enjoyed by those immune to certain emotional pitfalls. In many ways, I think this is actually a good thing for guys because let's face it, today, men love more than women. Men are more dedicated than women. Because, again, men are the ones that have to propose. Men are the ones that have to put themselves out there. And men are the ones that are taking the risks because women face zero risks. So for a guy to say, hey, I want to be in a long-term relationship and I want to, propose and be a husband, that guy realizes, or at least in many cases realizes, I'm the one taking all the risks, yet they're still doing it. But at some point, that's going to fall off. They say friends with benefits, hookups require clear boundaries and self-awareness, and it's not for everyone. Among hooking up, one-night stands and friends with benefits tends to be the most advantageous and safe. Who's it safe for? Men, because they don't get run through the ringer. Most friends with benefit relationships do not transition into romantic relationships, which again is good because most of the time, men, when it comes to love, are kind of all in or none. You know what I mean? Like, you'll see guys that are like, oh, love her, and she broke my heart, and I'll never recover from this. And then you see guys that are out there like, yeah, we're friends with benefits. Oh, she's hooking up with some other guy, and it fell apart. Oh, well, moving on. And it's those guys, really, the guys that don't get emotionally attached, they're usually the top 10 or 20 percenters that have more options, which is why, really, if you want to have a fair shake at this, you need to get in shape and you need to at least dress well and have a good personality and a good sense of humor. I think you can actually get out there and get dating and getting hookups and things like that. If you're in the bottom 80%, well, usually those guys have one-itis and they're like, oh, I'm so lucky to have a woman. I need to put everything into this, and then they get their heart broken. So really, again, this is per usual. They're really only talking about the top 10 or 20% of men because they're really the only the ones with opportunity that can even do this. So keep that in mind that, if you do have that desire and you do say, hey, I do want to get into the dating game, that's fine. You're just going to have to play the game, as it were. I think a lot of guys realize, like, I would be out there if I could find a good woman and maybe get married and have kids and have a happy family, but since I can't get that and that's what I really want, I'm out. Like, I'm just completely out. They say while not for everyone, casual hookups is quite common, despite overall levels of sexual intimacy being at a 30-year low. Over 50% of emerging adults, those between 18 and 29, reported at least one instance of casual hookups. And this is from 2003 and 2023. So if you think about this, what's the difference between today and like when I was a young man? When I was a young man, we had TV. There was your source of entertainment. I mean, when it comes to just being at home or being stuck in your bedroom at the house with your family, you pretty much you could maybe call a friend, you could watch TV, and you could listen to music. That's about it. So when we were 16 and 17 and 18, we were very heavily incentivized to get a car, get our driver's license, get a job, so we had some money, so we could hang out with friends, but also so we could get a girlfriend, because if you wanted to see a girl without her clothes off, that was about the only way it was going to happen, unless you had Skinamax or, some magazines laying around. Now young men have everything at their fingertips. They have friends online. They have gaming online. They have the spicy stuff online. And so a lot of them are very disincentivized to actually interact with human beings. Again, I think in the long term, it is a loss for men. I think they should experience dating and having their fun with the ladies, but it's becoming work. Where when I was younger, it was fun. Today, it's work, and a lot of guys don't want to put in the work because they just don't see the benefits. They say casual encounters are not created equal. They vary between hookups, one-night stands, friends with benefits. Distinguished from other forms of casual hookups, friends with benefits occurs between people who tend to know each other well and have an emotional connection. This right here separates a lot of guys right out of it, because a lot of guys don't have an emotional connection with women, and they don't know any women very well. And if they do, a lot of them have also been put in the friend zone. Really, what this kind of relationship means is that in almost every case, the man sleeps and dates down, and she will sleep and date up. That's most of how this happens. It almost never, ever, ever is the opposite, where she is sleeping and dating down, and he gets to date and sleep up. So that's why I say, this is only going to happen to the top percentages of men. They say caution is advised for those who fall in love easily, have challenging attachment histories, or clearly want a committed relationship. Again, that's mostly the women because, again, they're dating up. Friends with benefits is a mixture of authentic emotional connection, attraction, and satisfying bedroom action, not far from the realities of a healthy romantic relationship. Truly, the only feature that separates the two is the foreclosure of a future together and the perceived demands of a budding committed relationship. Now, with this, that type of relationship is now the most punishing to men, right? Foreclosure of a future together, which, I mean, we know how the ladies are acting right now. And again, if you have a future with her and she eventually wants a ring and eventually wants marriage, eventually wants kids, she still has the golden parachute. And as long as they do, that is a bad deal for men. And, a budding committed relationship, guys don't have a lot of problems committing, I don't think, with the right woman. But because men can get their bedroom fun with, at least the top men can get their bedroom fun by dating down, why would they commit? What's the point of it? They say the cons are clear. Developing a romantic attachment to a friend could end in losing the friendship, heartbreak, and for some, a waste of time that could otherwise have been dedicated to intentional dating. Again, I think that mostly relates to the women. While the empirical research into the pros of FWBs has been disproportionately focused on emerging adults, these relationships occur in adulthood as well, including with divorcees and single parents. And I think this is clutch. There's a couple guys that are on the locals community over there. One of them is 53. I won't out him by saying his name. He knows I'm probably talking about him. And he shares photos and stories and his dating adventures as a 53-year-old guy. And he's very successful. Mostly he's dating single mothers and he's dating divorcee, women that are divorced. And they're in their 30s and 40s. And that doesn't bother him because he's not looking for anything long-term. They usually aren't either. And, so why you say, yeah, but, they're single moms and divorced, who cares? He's really getting the access to what he wants, which is the bedroom and his fun, and it's risk-free. He doesn't have to worry about promising the future or, being stepdaddy or anything like that. So in many ways, men that are in their 40s and 50s, maybe even 60s, that are willing to date down by 10 or 15, well, not willing to date down, maybe the better word is, that are dating down 10 or 15 years and willing to take single moms and divorced women and all this other stuff. They're getting what they want out of it. It's not a bad deal, which is why I think more and more guys are saying, hey, this is for me. And the nice thing is for younger men that are really struggling now in dating, the good news is that if you keep yourself in relatively good shape and, if you have a weak chin, you grow a beard, if you wear contacts or glasses, maybe get some contacts, learn to dress nicely and go out and learn to, communicate and mingle and be funny and have good conversation, you may get all the women you want to sleep with. It may just take until you're in 40s and 50s and you're getting the leftovers, women in their 30s. It may sound like a bad deal, but I'll tell you something. For a lot of guys, it's their time to shine and have their fun without having to worry about being a provider, a protector, and bringing kind of the classic traditional values to a relationship. So depending on where you are in the market, it could actually work out for you. They go on to say, I argue that emerging adults, divorcees, and single parents share a similar period of transition and exploration despite a variety of developmental and personality differences within and across these groups. Over the last 20 years, there's been a growing evidence of the benefits of friends with benefits. For example, emerging adults who have intimacy with a friend at least once describe it as positively, regardless of male or female. They describe it as positively, or positive. There's some evidence of a gender difference in perceptions of casual hookups, with men viewing it more positively, likely in part because they more frequently experience the finish line, as it were, and they get to the happy place, and a lot of times the women don't. Benefits can include greater confidence, agency, satisfaction in a relationship that is typically experienced as more psychologically safe. Again, men aren't risking their future and their fortunes just to have access to women. The quality of experiences tend to increase with the sense of safety and familiarity. With practices tend to be more consistent with being safe in the bedroom, reducing the most common risks of casual hookups, including unplanned pregnancies and STIs. The convenience of sex with a trusted friend can eliminate the effort of a more serious romantic relationship and reduce the risks of hookups with strangers. In a best-case scenario, these relationships can be a stepping stone or a proxy for an exclusive romantic relationship. However, as mentioned, one of the glaring downfalls of friends with benefits is if one friend develops a romantic attachment beyond the friend-based emotional attachment. There's no surefire way to prevent romantic feelings from developing, and if those feelings aren't reciprocated, they can lead to the dissolution of a great friendship. The good news is that tends not to be the case, according to researchers from the University of Louisville, who found that 80% of participants who ended a friends with benefit relationships were still friends. When I was a guy in my 20s, it was, and things are different. So if I make it sound like it was easy to hook up while I was in my 20s, it was comparative to today. Again, we didn't have the cell phones. We had pagers, but that was just, you'd get a buzz and it's like 411 because somebody wanted information from you, 911 because they had an emergency and they really needed to get a hold of you. 8008 was my, because what you do is when you text, when you page somebody, you can punch in, numbers, and you're supposed to be able to punch in a phone number. And then when the when the vibration goes off on your pager, and you look at it, it usually would have a phone number. But what we did is we would punch in a phone number, and then we'd put in like a numeric meaning of something. So I told the girls that I was dating at the time, which there were multiple, put 8008 if you want to hook up, because that's boob, So they put in their phone number and 8008. And I'm like, okay, well, this is somebody, obviously, I didn't necessarily know the number well enough to know who it was, but it was somebody I gave my pager number to, so it was somebody I thought was fun to hang out with and fun to sleep with. So, you still definitely had some kind of hookup culture. It wasn't nearly the same, though. You still had to meet people in person. And because of that, even though I wasn't, I wasn't like built like a Greek god or anything, I was thin, I was athletic in shape, I was decent looking, but more really my advantage was being funny and being interesting and making people laugh and have fun. I tried to be, I don't know, the Chris Farley or Jim Belushi of the group, albeit I had a lot less substance use and I was much lighter and thinner. But the point is you still had a chance back then, where today it is a completely different game. Back then, the girls definitely wanted to date, and I'd say 50% of them wanted to date. And as a guy, you'd say, that's just not my headspace right now. And the women would still hook up with you. They say, okay, well, and they would try to get you to become the boyfriend, and you never did. And then they got angry. But the other half were women that were like, yeah, that's fine. Like, I'm cool with that. And we just did the hookup. It happened quite a bit more, I think, back in the day, where women would become emotionally attached. And they'd pull the, what are we, or where do you see this going after a couple months? And you're like, we had an agreement. This was just a hookup. Like this, I'm not into anything. And then they get angry and stop talking to you. Now today, I think a lot of women are fine with this because they're getting what they want. In other words, they have an income. They have their own life. They have their group of friends. They look at men as disposable as much as men look at women that are disposable. And so it's just hookup culture until something better comes along. The men that are doing this, I think, would rarely fall in love. I know I never fell in love with any of the casual friends with benefits or anything like that I had when I was younger. I was never like, oh man, I really want this to go somewhere. Never happened to me once. Did happen to a lot of the women. And same thing with my friends. My friends never were like, oh man, she's a friends with benefits, but I really would like this to. No, it doesn't happen. It happens to the women. So, I think nowadays it's even less likely that something romantic will come out of it. And so who does this serve the most? Well, it really serves men the most. You want to make sure that you don't get knock a girl up and get her pregnant. But outside of that, mostly men get married so they have a wife and they have somebody that would take care of a household and they would have somebody that'd be a good mother to the kids and all the traditional things. But that's not happening anymore. So you stack up a non-traditional woman on top of her being independent and her making her own money, and we don't have to provide or promise anything to women to get what men mostly want, which is sleeping with women. So today's culture really is ideal for men that just want to sleep with women. The challenge is, number one, the quality of woman you're going to get has gone way down. Many of them are heavy set. Now, if you're into that, that's fine. But if you're not, something like 60 or 70% are overweight. Many of them are entitled. They're mean. They're spiteful. But if you say, something that doesn't matter to me because all I want to do is get, my willy wet or whatever, then, hey, you know what? Maybe this will work out for you. You do have to put in the effort to make yourself desirable enough to at least get a halfway decent woman. They say most of these friends with benefit relationships do end without transition into romantic. The odds are steep, with percentages ranging from 75 to 85%, either returning to purely friends or dissolving any form of friendship altogether, which in many cases is fine because a lot of times guys stay friends with women just because they hope to sleep with them. So if that falls apart, a lot of times I think guys are like, who cares? They say it's also likely that many friends with benefits will not be long-lasting. Surprisingly, one longitudinal study found 60% of participants slept together just once before returning to being platonic. Now, that could be for a bunch of reasons, but one thing I bet it is it's probably the girl got broken up with by, Chad Chattington. She decides to get even or thinks it'll show him if she sleeps with one of her guy friend orbiters that are just hanging out. She sleeps with him to, feel better about herself or to get back at him. And then, she says, okay, he's really not what I want, but he made me feel, desirable or attractive or wanted or whatever. It gets her past her moment, and then she goes on to continue doing her thing. She says, they say it's understandable that often daters will want to fall in love with their best friend, and rightly so. That's a woman thing, I think. According to couple therapy pioneers Dr. John and Julie Gottman, friendship is key to a long and fierce love. It involves knowing each other deeply, being incredibly fond and admiring of each other, and effectively turning towards each other's bids for affection and intimacy. The difference in more conventional romantic relationships is that friendship develops simultaneously with the attraction, the passion, and the intimacy. One does not precede the other. This is, I think, very important for men to understand. The guys that become friends with women hoping that she will eventually see you as a potential interest, love interest, or match. She doesn't. And you can't have the friendship without any attraction, nor can you have the attraction without the friendship, because the attraction without the friendship is just a hookup, right? And if you have the friendship without the attraction, then basically you just become a simp orbiter. And that's the problem, is a lot of guys get in that position, and then they try to translate it over into something romantic or sexual, and that doesn't happen. It just doesn't. Now, that doesn't mean she doesn't have too many drinks one night and decides to give you, a little action because she's feeling down and bummed out and she feels lonely and wants some attention. But that's usually what most guys don't want that are in that position. Because then after she gives the attention and then takes it away, a lot of guys are very miserable and very angry. So it's very important to understand that it has to be both an attraction and a friendship at the same time. Again, this is something I can comment on. I have had some friendships with benefits, and the two always went together. Like, there had to be some attraction. Maybe one or each of you was dating somebody and the timing wasn't right or whatever. And then, things happened to line up and things kicked off because you were already in that place to begin with. This is why many times I say, and it's not 100% stone cold in every example. There can be exceptions, but in many cases, when a woman has male friends or men have female friends or whatever, that's usually a little dangerous because in many cases, there's attraction one way or another. And when one of them breaks up in a relationship or with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, something can happen. And in many cases, they don't even break up. There was a video clip. Let me see if I can find this video clip. All right, I went looking for it. I can't find it. I found it on Twitter, and I bookmarked it, and I can't find it anymore. But what it was an interview, kind of man on the street type interview, and this guy asked this girl, "Hey, do you think your guy friend, if you called him, are you just friends?" And she said yes. And he said, "Do you think if you called him and said you broke up with your boyfriend, that he'd be wanting to hook up?" And she said, "No, I really doubt it." And he said, "Okay, let's call and see what happens." So she calls and she says, "Oh, I broke up with so-and-so, and I wanted to let you know I had a little bit of a crush on you." And he's like, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, let's do something about it. Like, can I take you out Friday?" Now, here's the twist. She said, "Yeah, I think I'd like that. I have a little bit of a crush on you too." And the guy, the interviewer's like, he's like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And so she gets off the phone. He's like, "Wait, like, you have a boyfriend, but you're now going to hook up with your friend?" And she's like, "Well, he was kind of on his way out anyway, and I didn't really have that much interest anyway." And he's like, "This generation is so screwed up." And she laughs, but she didn't have any interest initially, or she said she didn't have any interest initially. But the friend, of course, he's an orbiter, and he was hanging in there. And turns out she did have some feelings for him. And this guy, by just doing this interview and pressing her to make this move, actually instigated a breakup of her and her boyfriend and a hookup between her and her friend. And so there's always this danger or this threat of this happening. And because of that, that's why men have to be so careful. If a woman expresses a lot of interest or she has a lot of guy friends and she says, "Oh, I get along better with men than women," that's a big warning sign. And same thing when guys have all female friends, it's kind of the same thing. He's probably a little bit of a dog, and his friends are probably attractive or somebody he might end up sleeping with. Not always, not in all cases, but it is something you need to be aware of. So, if the friends with benefits is all that's left, I mean, let's face it. Right now, women do not want serious relationships because they see men as worthless. They admit it themselves. They're like, "Why do I need a man? I make my own money." They've got the government to help them and protect them. They don't need a protecting man. They've been told all their lives that men are weak and stupid. A lot of younger men, and I'm not necessarily talking about you guys watching this content, but a lot of younger men are very effeminate. They don't know how to do anything. They come across as weak and not masculine. And women are not attracted to that. So a lot of younger women that want relationships are dating up by 10 or 15 or 20 years. That's happening a heck of a lot more now. So as the men become successful, and if they take care of themselves, and again, maybe they age well, and all of a sudden have resources, and they still have their looks, and they're in good shape, and they're masculine, and they're strong, and they don't put up with any of the nonsense of today, there are women that want that from a guy. And so you do see a lot of younger women dating older men. And then when you take that out of the equation, what is offered by long-term relationships with men anymore? There's no traditional women. They bring their own money. Men are not needed. And so women are very quick to bail out of the relationship, and some of the guys are too, to go hook up or meet up with somebody else. So that's kind of out. So really, friends with benefits is kind of what everybody's doing, is either the one-night stands or the friends with benefit hookup. It's emotionally safe. You're not promising anything. And it's kind of like the fast food of dating. I guess maybe you could say if McDonald's were dating, that would be the one-night stand. But this is the Waffle House or the Starbucks of dating, which is you keep going back to the same thing over and over and over again, keep getting the same thing, but at any point in time you can walk away and there's no risk. And I think this benefits men more than anything, because it's usually men that are losing resources, men that are losing opportunity, men that are getting their hearts broken. And why do men put themselves all through that? For companionship? Not really. They have a dog or friends. For friendship? Not really. They have friends or a dog. Why do men date women? Because they'd like a traditional woman, but if she's not that, at least they have somebody to sleep with. Women, in the long term, need more. And women are fine with hooking up with the good-looking guys and having their fun, but eventually, once these women hit 30, 35, they realize they're not going to have the same opportunity until they're 50 or 60 like a man does, so they try to tie down the best thing they can get so they at least have something, where men don't really think that way. I didn't think at 35 and 40, wow, I better hurry up and find a woman. I never thought like that, because you see what's out there today, and men are doing very well into their 50s and 60s with women that are 10, 20, 30 years younger than them, if they have some money and some resources and their head screwed on straight. So I think ultimately she is going to be the one that is wondering if there's love, is there something coming out of this? And the men are just going to be like, I'm good, man. This is awesome. Like, you can say what you want about feminism and how it's destroying the world, but in many ways, it's the best thing that happened to men that want casual relationships. And really, that's all that's left for men. That's just what it is. Guys, if you're over here on YouTube, make sure to join us over on Locals, where I will be doing a dating profile of the day. I don't do those here on YouTube anymore because some salty people decided to yell at YouTube and call me a bad man, and YouTube told me to knock it off. So now I only do them over at Locals. So come on, join us over on Locals. I do about 10 live streams a month over there for supporters only. It's $5 a month. Come on over and join us, and we'll see you in the next one.